Hey guys, welcome to Bedtime Sleeping History. Imagine a place so ancient, so forgotten, that even time itself hesitates at its door. Beneath an abandoned city, hidden in stone and silence, there lies a chamber untouched for centuries. Its walls breathe with whispers, its shadows shift like memories, and every sound inside feels like the heartbeat of history itself. Tonight, we step closer to that door, to hear the lullabies of the forgotten chamber, where secrets do not vanish, they simply wait, patient as sleep. So guys, before we step deeper into this fascinating story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more relaxing and mysterious tales. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to give it a like, it really helps us grow. Now, let's begin. Whispers of the Forgotten Chamber. Beneath the crumbling stones of an ancient city, there lies a chamber untouched by sunlight. The air within those halls carries the weight of centuries, so dense and still that even footsteps sound like echoes from another world. To approach the chamber is to step outside of time itself. The oak door, heavy with iron bands, stands silent. Its lock has rusted over generations, yet it remains unbroken, holding back whatever sleeps within. Dust lies thick upon the threshold, undisturbed, as though no living soul has dared to cross it for centuries. The silence around it is not empty, it is full, heavy, almost alive. Those who stand near feel a subtle vibration in the air, a pulse that seems to come not from the earth but from the chamber itself. It is steady, patient, like the slow heartbeat of something eternal. Shadows cling to the stones, stretching and shifting though no torch or candle burns nearby. Sometimes they form patterns. Half-seen shapes of crowns, swords, or faces, only to melt back into nothingness. It feels less like imagination and more like memory written in darkness. The faint scent of burned wood lingers, though no fire has been lit for hundreds of years. It drifts gently into the air, wrapping itself around the senses, stirring visions of warmth long gone, scribes at work, monks in prayer, candles flickering in silence. Deep inside, a soft hum resonates. It is not quite a voice, not quite a song, but a vibration, low, steady, and calming. It feels like the very stones are humming to themselves, singing a lullaby only the patient can hear. From somewhere in the chamber, the slow drip of water echoes like a clock. Each drop is deliberate, unhurried, falling into darkness with infinite patience. The sound merges with silence, lulling the mind into rhythm, as though time itself is rocking the listener to sleep. Sometimes, the air shifts gently, as if the room itself is breathing. It pulls inward, then exhales outward, slow and steady, as though the chamber lives. Those who listen long enough often find their own breath slowing, falling in rhythm with that unseen presence. On certain nights, the moonlight spills across the stone floor outside, touching the heavy oak door. When it does, faint symbols shimmer into view, circles, stars, lines intersecting in patterns too complex to name. They glow for a moment, then vanish when the clouds return. The door itself sighs faintly, its hinges straining though unmoved. The groan is low, tired, echoing like the voice of something that has been waiting too long. Even iron, it seems, remembers. Even wood, it seems, grows weary. Visitors sometimes place their palms against the door. For a fleeting moment, a pulse can be felt, subtle, steady, like a heartbeat inside the wood. The sensation is gone almost as soon as it comes, but it lingers in memory, undeniable. The shelves within creak faintly, though no hand touches them. Scrolls and tomes, unseen yet present, shift softly as though adjusting under their own weight. A faint scrape echoes, parchment against parchment, maps being unrolled in silence. At times, a golden glow seeps from beneath the door. It is not candlelight, nor moonlight, but something gentler. It spreads briefly across the stones, warm and comforting, before fading back into shadow. The air thickens with presence, brushing across the skin like invisible fabric. It feels like the soft touch of robes passing by, like someone unseen walking just beyond the threshold. The sensation is fleeting, but enough to convince the heart that the chamber is never empty. Shadows lengthen unnaturally across the corridor. They form processions, rows of kneeling monks, figures carrying scrolls, soldiers standing in silence. These visions vanish as quickly as they appear, leaving behind only stillness. A faint ringing sometimes drifts outward, delicate as distant bells. The notes are slow, patient, carrying no joy or sorrow, only the weight of time. They linger in the air, weaving into the silence like threads of memory. The stone walls hum faintly, as though holding voices too soft to hear. The sound is not constant but comes in waves, like breathing. It is as if the chamber remembers conversations from long ago and lets them slip quietly into the present. On rare nights, faint letters glow upon the stones near the door. They belong to no known language, yet they stir recognition within the soul. They speak not in words, but in feeling, messages of patience, of waiting, of endless time. Sometimes, the chamber exhales. A cool breath slips through the cracks, carrying with it the scent of old ink, candle smoke, and damp stone. It curls softly around the body, leaving behind the comfort of being held by something ancient. And always, the whispers continue. They rise and fall, never fully forming words, but weaving together into rhythm. They are not meant to be understood. They are meant to be felt, like the sound of waves, or the rustling of trees, lulling the heart toward dreams. The silence grows heavier as the night deepens, pressing gently against the ears until every sound becomes magnified. A single breath feels loud, a slow heartbeat echoes inside the chest like a drum. In that stillness, the chamber seems to listen as much as it waits. Shadows curl along the walls, stretching thin fingers across the stones. They move with purpose, yet without haste, forming lines and circles that vanish before the eye can understand them. The imagination tries to chase meaning, but the chamber does not explain, it only shows and then takes away. The lock groans softly, metal straining against metal though untouched by any hand. It is a sound that seems too alive for rusted iron, too purposeful for silence. Some say it is the chamber testing itself, reminding the world that it still remembers how to guard what lies within. The air thickens, carrying the faintest scent of parchment and ink. It clings to the senses, pulling the mind toward visions of scholars bent over scrolls, their quills scratching in endless patience. The sound of writing seems almost audible, as though ghosts continue their work behind the door. At times, the hum grows stronger, vibrating in the chest, steady and low. It is not threatening, it is comforting, like the steady thrum of a lullaby that does not need words. The longer one listens, the more the world outside drifts away, until only the hum remains, rocking the soul into stillness. The drip of unseen water continues, each drop more deliberate than the last. The pauses grow longer, stretching wider, until the silence between seems larger than the sound itself. Each note becomes a reminder of patience, of time unfolding not in rush, but in eternity. A faint warmth spreads across the stones, as though a hidden fire once burned within. It touches the skin softly, like memory itself brushing past. The warmth fades almost instantly, yet the comfort lingers, leaving behind the ghost of light in the darkness. Moonlight slides across the corridor, touching the edges of the oak door. For a brief moment, the entire doorway glows, pale silver lines appearing across its surface. Circles, stars, and spirals shimmer in delicate rhythm, before melting back into the wood as if they were never there. Sometimes the silence is broken by the faintest whisper of fabric, the sound of robes brushing against stone. It is subtle, almost imagined, yet it carries weight. One feels not alone, but accompanied by figures unseen, still walking their endless circuit within the chamber. Shadows along the floor bend unnaturally, forming outlines of kneeling figures. They bow low, heads bent, hands folded in prayer. The vision lingers for only seconds before dissolving, leaving the stone bare once more. The memory of devotion, however, clings to the heart long after. The air cools suddenly, a draft slipping out from the cracks beneath the door. It smells of earth and age, of time buried deep in stone. The chill settles into the bones, not as discomfort but as weight, a reminder that centuries rest heavily within this chamber. On rare nights, the sound of pages turning drifts outward. It is slow, deliberate, like hands carefully moving through parchment older than kingdoms. Each turn is followed by silence, as though invisible eyes linger on the words before allowing another page to move. The faint ringing of distant bells returns, low and patient. The notes come one at a time, separated by silence so deep that the mind fills it with dreams. The sound does not demand attention, it lulls, it soothes, it rocks the listener closer to surrender. The walls themselves seem to hold memory. Sometimes they vibrate softly, as though carrying voices too faint to hear. The sensation is not in the ear, but in the body, felt in the chest, in the bones, in the slow stillness of breath. A soft glow appears beneath the door, golden and warm, painting the floor with light. It does not flicker like fire, nor shine like moonlight. It glows with patience, steady and calm, as though the chamber itself is awake, watching quietly. The glow fades, but the sense of presence remains. Even in darkness, one feels observed, not with malice, but with curiosity. It is the gaze of something ancient, something that has seen countless generations come and go, and still remains unmoved. Shadows stretch further now, spilling across the stones like ink spreading through water. They twist and curl, forming shapes that vanish too quickly to hold. A crown here, a sword there, a face staring silently. Then nothing, only stone and silence. The whispers return, softer than breath, curling at the edges of thought. They do not form words, but they carry feeling, sorrow, patience, longing, calm. To listen is to drift, to be drawn deeper into the rhythm until the mind can no longer tell waking from dreaming. And still the chamber waits, its door unmoving, its secrets untouched. It hums, it breathes, it whispers, holding time itself within its walls. For those who linger, there is no end, only silence stretching onward, heavy and eternal, lulling all who hear into the arms of sleep. The stone walls seem to breathe softly, holding within them countless untold stories. The silence is not empty, it carries weight, like a blanket woven from centuries of forgotten whispers. Every corner of the chamber feels alive, as though the stones themselves have memories. The air grows cooler, thicker, gently pressing down on anyone who dares to linger too long near the door. Sometimes the faintest tremor passes through the floor, so subtle that it feels more like imagination than reality. Yet it comes again, steady and patient, like the slow heartbeat of the chamber. Those who stand nearby often find themselves swaying slightly, caught in rhythm with something ancient and unseen. The effect is strangely calming, as if time itself slows to match the steady pulse of the room. Shadows drift along the edges of the stone, shifting in shapes that resemble faces or symbols. They never stay long enough to be certain. A profile of a king might appear, only to vanish into nothing. The suggestion of a crown or a sword might emerge, dissolving into the grayness. Each vision feels like a half-remembered dream, fading before the mind can capture it. There are nights when the faint scent of burning wood seeps into the air, though no fire has been lit in centuries. It drifts gently through the cracks, curling around the senses like smoke from an invisible hearth. The warmth of it contrasts with the cold stone, stirring memories of homes long destroyed, families long gone, and lives erased by the passing of time. A gentle hum sometimes echoes through the room. It is not a song, nor a voice, but something in between. Like the resonance of stone remembering the weight of footsteps, or the vibration of history settling deeper into the earth. It lingers softly, a low vibration felt more in the chest than in the ears, rocking the listener toward drowsiness. The shelves within the chamber creak faintly, as though stretching under the burden of countless scrolls and tomes. No one touches them, yet they shift slightly, adjusting to their eternal weight. Occasionally, the sound of something sliding echoes faintly, like parchment moving against parchment, or a map being unrolled by hands unseen. The lock on the door, old and rusted, sometimes makes a sound as though it is straining. A faint metallic groan, soft and tired, rising and fading again into silence. It has guarded the chamber for centuries, resisting storms, wars, and the passage of generations. The sound feels almost like a sigh, a reminder that even iron grows weary over time. Moonlight spills across the corridor floor outside, creeping slowly toward the threshold. When it touches the heavy oak, the air shifts slightly, growing cooler. For a moment, the entire doorway seems to glow, as though moonlight itself is recognizing the sacredness of what lies beyond. The glow lasts only seconds, fading back into shadow, leaving a lingering memory of light. There are nights when faint outlines appear on the surface of the door. Symbols scratched long ago, invisible by day but revealed under the silver gaze of the moon. Circles, stars, and lines intersecting in patterns too complex to fully understand. They shimmer faintly, as if pulsing with a rhythm of their own, then vanish again when the night passes. Deep within the chamber, the sound of dripping water echoes softly. Each drop is slow, deliberate, and steady, like the ticking of an ancient clock. The rhythm is hypnotic, each note falling with such precision that it feels like part of a larger symphony, composed by time itself. The sound carries into the hall, soothing the mind with its simplicity. The cold air around the chamber thickens, sometimes carrying with it a scent of old iron and damp stone. It clings to the skin, seeps into the lungs, and lingers on the breath. Yet the sensation is oddly comforting, a reminder that the chamber is real, physical, and eternal. The body grows heavier in its presence, sinking slowly into a state of calm. Footsteps are sometimes imagined in the distance, faint and deliberate. They echo through the corridors leading toward the room, yet they never arrive. Each step fades before reaching the door, as though the walker has vanished into thin air. The silence that follows feels deeper, stretching into eternity. Visitors often close their eyes, listening to the faint sounds that drift around the door. They hear whispers that sound like languages no longer spoken. Some syllables feel familiar, while others are strange, curling around the mind without ever forming clear meaning. The whispers rise and fall like waves, soft and lulling, encouraging sleep. The stone floor beneath the chamber holds warmth in unexpected moments, radiating a gentle heat that feels like the echo of ancient fires. It seeps slowly upward, touching the soles of those who stand near the door. The warmth is brief, disappearing as quickly as it appears, leaving behind a memory of comfort in the cold silence. At times, a soft glow emerges from beneath the door, faint but unmistakable. It is not candlelight, nor moonlight, but something softer, like the glow of memory itself. The light lingers, painting the stone floor with a pale, golden hue, before slipping back into darkness as if it had never been. There are moments when the chamber feels as though it breathes. The air moves subtly, pulling inward, then releasing outward, as though the room itself inhales and exhales. It is steady, gentle, and almost reassuring, like being cradled in the rhythm of something vast and eternal. Those who stand nearby often find their own breathing unconsciously slowing to match it. Shadows stretch further on some nights, spilling across the corridor floor like ink. They move without sound, curling at the edges, shifting into forms that tease the imagination. Some swear they have seen outlines of figures kneeling, or lines of people walking in procession. The shadows vanish quickly, as if never there, leaving only questions in the stillness. A faint metallic ringing sometimes drifts through the silence. It is soft, delicate, like the distant sound of bells far away. The notes come slowly, each one separated by long moments of quiet. The sound is neither joyous nor mournful, it simply exists, a gentle reminder of time's endless passage. Inside, the air grows denser as if weighed down by invisible thoughts. The walls seem to hum quietly, as though they are filled with voices too soft to hear. Every surface feels heavy with memory, and the mind drifts into a strange stillness, caught between wakefulness and dream. There are whispers of a great book that lies within, said to contain the true history of the city, events as they truly happened, not as they were remembered. The idea alone has drawn countless curious souls, yet none have dared open the door. The chamber protects its secrets, keeping them untouched, waiting for someone worthy. The iron hinges of the door groan faintly at times, though the door does not move. The sound is deep and drawn out, echoing in the stone corridor like a sigh of age. It reminds all who hear it that centuries have passed, and still the chamber waits. Some visitors claim to feel a pulse beneath their hands when they touch the door. It is faint, steady, like a heartbeat deep within the wood and iron. It lasts only seconds, but in those moments, it feels as though the chamber itself is alive, aware, and eternal. The silence that surrounds the chamber grows heavier with every passing moment, like a velvet curtain drawn across the senses. Standing near the door, one feels the air thicken, as if time itself has slowed to a crawl. Each heartbeat seems louder, more deliberate, until it merges with the stillness. The body relaxes without realizing, lulled by the deep quiet that the room commands. From deep within, there is sometimes the softest murmur of voices, overlapping and fading into one another. They do not speak in any recognizable language, yet they sound familiar, like echoes from dreams long forgotten. The cadence of the whispers rises and falls with the rhythm of breathing, as if the room itself were whispering a lullaby meant only for those who listen closely. The faint scent of stone dust lingers in the corridor, mingling with the ghost of old ink and candle smoke. It is a scent both dry and warm, earthy yet strangely comforting. Those who inhale deeply find themselves transported to another time, when the chamber was new, alive with the presence of scribes, maps, and voices. The fragrance clings to memory like a shadow, impossible to forget once noticed. Shadows crawl gently across the ground, shifting as though guided by unseen hands. They never remain still, but move in quiet patterns, forming curves and lines that resemble forgotten symbols. Just when the eye tries to focus, they vanish again, slipping back into the darkness. It leaves the mind unsettled, but also strangely calm, as if part of a forgotten story has brushed against consciousness and passed on. The sound of dripping water continues from somewhere unseen, steady and rhythmic, like a clock that has been keeping time for centuries. Each drop lands with soft precision, echoing in the mind like a heartbeat. The sound is not intrusive, instead, it becomes part of the silence, merging with the listener's breathing until it feels like the body itself is echoing the rhythm. The air occasionally carries a trace of warmth, as if a hidden fire once burned within the chamber. It touches the skin for only moments, like a gentle caress, before fading back into the familiar chill. The warmth is enough to stir the imagination, visions of monks bent over parchment, of candle flames flickering, of hands working in silence centuries ago. The chamber seems to replay its memories not in sight or sound, but in sensation. A faint ringing returns on some nights, like bells heard from an immeasurable distance. The notes are soft, ethereal, stretched far apart, as though drifting slowly through centuries before reaching the ear. They are neither joyous nor mournful, only steady, ancient, and patient, like the voice of time itself. Listening to them is like floating, drifting further and further into dreams. The oak door itself seems alive in quiet ways. At times, a faint pulse can be felt if one places a hand upon it, a subtle vibration, steady, like the beat of a heart hidden deep inside the wood and stone. The sensation is fleeting, but it leaves behind an undeniable impression. The chamber is not merely a room, but something more, something breathing. Occasionally, faint patterns shimmer across the surface of the door. Circles and stars, geometric shapes that pulse faintly under moonlight, then fade when the clouds shift. They appear without warning and vanish without trace, leaving behind only the certainty that one has witnessed something sacred. Those who see them feel marked, chosen in some way, though they can never explain why. Deeper within, pages seem to turn by themselves. The sound is soft, careful, unhurried. Each turn of parchment is followed by a pause, as if invisible eyes are reading, absorbing every word. The silence that follows is heavy, reverent, as though the very stones are honoring the act of reading. Listening to it feels like sitting in the company of scholars long gone, their presence lingering in ritual. The shadows along the corridor sometimes elongate in strange ways, reaching far beyond their natural shape. They stretch across walls and floors, twisting into forms that resemble figures in procession, kneeling monks, marching soldiers, or quiet scribes carrying scrolls. The images are fleeting, dissolving as quickly as they appear, yet they leave behind a haunting serenity, as if entire generations pass before the eyes in moments. The cold air becomes thick with presence on certain nights, brushing across the skin like invisible hands. It carries with it the weight of countless lives, of kings, queens, and nameless scribes who poured their stories into this chamber. The sensation is not frightening, but heavy, grounding the listener in the awareness that history itself is alive in this place, always watching, always remembering. At times, a golden glow flickers beneath the edges of the door. It is warm, steady, and strangely comforting, like the first light of dawn peeking into a darkened room. The glow lingers for a moment, painting the stones with gentle warmth, before retreating again into silence. In that brief moment, it feels as though the chamber is awake, acknowledging the visitor, offering a silent welcome that cannot be spoken aloud. The silence grows deeper, so deep that even the smallest sounds take on new weight. A breath feels louder, a heartbeat echoes in the chest. The world beyond seems impossibly far away, as if the chamber itself exists in a different realm. Time stretches thin, and those who linger feel they could stand here for minutes or centuries, unable to tell the difference. Some say they have felt the brush of fabric against their skin, though no one stands nearby. It is the sensation of robes passing in silence, of sleeves brushing gently, of presence moving past unseen. The sensation is fleeting, yet it carries with it the distinct impression of figures still walking within the chamber, continuing their work across the centuries. When the moonlight is strongest, faint writing appears upon the stones near the door. It glows silver for moments before fading. The letters belong to no known language, yet they stir recognition deep in the soul, as if the heart understands what the mind cannot. They speak not in words, but in feeling, echoes of longing, patience, and endless time. The chamber exhales softly in those moments, a draft of cool air slipping out to wrap around the listener. It carries with it the scent of earth and parchment, a perfume of centuries. The breath is steady and deliberate, as though the room is reminding the world that it is still here, still watching, still waiting. Every detail, the shifting dust, the flickering light, the faint whispers, blends into one experience of timelessness. The chamber becomes less a place, more a dream, one that drifts gently between waking and sleeping. The mind grows heavy, lulled into quiet surrender, and the body follows, wrapped in the embrace of history's eternal patience. And still the door remains closed, the lock unmoved, the secrets untouched. Inside, the whispers continue, the pages turn, the candles burn unseen. The chamber waits, calm and infinite, holding its mysteries like treasures never meant to be revealed. It does not hurry, for it knows eternity, and it knows that all who pass will eventually return to its silence, if only in dreams. The corridor outside the chamber grows colder as night deepens, and the silence spreads outward like ripples in still water. Each stone in the walls seems to absorb sound, swallowing every echo before it can travel far. The effect is disorienting, as though the world itself has stopped beyond this place. Those who linger feel suspended between moments, as if caught in an endless pause where time dares not move forward. The oak door occasionally creaks without moving, a sound so faint it could be mistaken for the shifting of wood in the cold. Yet the tone carries weight, like a tired groan from something ancient that remembers too much. It is the kind of sound that resonates deep in the chest, stirring a subtle unease and, at the same time, a strange comfort, as though even wood and iron long for release. A faint shimmer sometimes spreads across the surface of the stones, like water rippling under invisible light. It lasts for seconds only, then vanishes, leaving behind no trace. Yet those who witness it swear they felt the air thicken, their heartbeat slow, and a deep drowsiness wash over them, as though the chamber had briefly opened a window into its timeless dream. The whispers return at intervals, weaving through the silence like strands of smoke. They rise and fall in tones that mimic speech, yet carry no words that can be understood. Instead, they convey emotions, sorrow, patience, longing, serenity. To listen is to be drawn into their rhythm, until thought dissolves and the mind drifts into soft surrender. From the floor beneath the chamber comes a low vibration, subtle and steady. It feels like the earth itself is breathing, releasing a pulse that runs up through the stone and into the body. The sensation is not frightening. It is grounding, steadying, like lying against the heartbeat of the world itself. It slows the breath, calms the nerves, and draws the listener ever closer to sleep. Occasionally, a scent of rain drifts in, though no storm rages above. The fragrance is fresh, cool, and heavy, carrying with it the impression of wet soil and ancient forests. It is a smell that awakens memory without belonging to any specific time. The scent lingers long enough to quiet the restless mind before fading again into stone and dust. Shadows shift gently across the corridor floor, stretching thin and bending in unnatural ways. They form long arches, curves, and sometimes the faint outline of figures bowed in silence. These forms do not last long, dissolving into nothing before the eye can adjust. Yet they leave behind the lingering impression of prayer, of ritual, of generations unseen but present still. The dripping sound within the chamber grows slower, more deliberate, until each drop feels like an entire moment unto itself. The pause between drops stretches wide, creating vast silence, before another note finally falls. This rhythm, so steady, so patient, rocks the mind into a state of quiet surrender. It is the rhythm of time itself, falling endlessly, without hurry, without end. When the moon reaches its highest point, the lock on the chamber door gleams faintly. Its rusted metal shines as if newly polished, reflecting light that seems not to exist. The glow is faint, pale, almost ghost-like. Then, just as suddenly, it fades back into darkness, leaving behind the impression of a watchful eye that has closed once more. There are moments when faint warmth radiates from the door, as though someone stands just beyond it, holding a candle. The warmth is soft, fleeting, touching the skin for mere seconds before vanishing again. It is enough to stir the heart, enough to suggest presence, but never enough to reveal what truly waits within. Sometimes the hum returns, low and steady, resonating deep in the stone. It is not music, yet it carries a rhythm that feels intentional. The sound rocks gently, almost like a lullaby, pulling the body into its sway. The longer one listens, the heavier the eyelids grow, until wakefulness feels distant, unnecessary, forgotten. The chamber seems alive in its stillness, more alive than the world outside. The longer one waits, the more it feels like being held by something vast and ancient. Thoughts unravel into quiet, words dissolve into silence, and all that remains is the gentle presence of a place that has watched centuries pass without ever moving. For some, dreams begin even before they fall asleep. They see glimpses of cloaked figures walking in endless circles, hear the faint scratching of quills across parchment, and feel the brush of candlelight against stone. These visions blur into waking silence, leaving one unsure whether they dreamed or remembered. The chamber offers no answer, only its endless quiet. The air grows heavier still as the night deepens, pressing gently upon the shoulders and eyelids of anyone who lingers. It is not oppressive, but tender, guiding the body toward rest. The mind slows, the breath steadies, and the chamber becomes less a place of stone and more a vast cradle of time, rocking the listener toward sleep. In this endless rhythm, every detail becomes part of the lullaby, the slow creak of wood, the faint shimmer of light, the steady drip of unseen water. Nothing is hurried, nothing is sharp. All moves with patience, with quiet persistence, carrying the weight of history not as burden, but as comfort. And still, the chamber waits, untouched, unbroken, its secrets sealed behind the heavy oak door. Whatever lies within remains hidden, not out of malice, but out of eternity's patience. For time does not rush, and neither does the chamber. It will remain, whispering, humming, breathing, until all who hear its story drift softly into silence. The chamber seemed to expand with each step, as if the walls themselves were breathing slowly. Every stone radiated a quiet energy, subtle but persistent, tugging at the edges of the mind and urging the listener into deeper stillness. The whispers became more intricate, weaving together in patterns that resembled language but never fully formed words. They seemed to convey emotions, longing, patience, memory, that could be felt more than understood. A faint draft swirled around the feet, carrying the scent of damp earth and faded parchment. It reminded the visitors of forgotten libraries, of scholars hunched over scrolls, and of candlelight flickering silently in the night. Shadows along the walls stretched and twisted, forming silhouettes of figures moving slowly, almost ceremoniously, as if following an ancient ritual. The movements were calm, deliberate, and hypnotic, lulling the mind further into a trance. The faint pulse that had been present since the first step into the chamber seemed to synchronize with the listener's heartbeat. Breaths became slower, steadier, and the body relaxed, melting into the rhythm of the room. Drips of unseen water echoed from far corners of the chamber. Each drop was measured, resonant, marking time in a cadence older than memory. The sound became a meditation, a pulse that both steadied and mesmerized. Occasionally, a faint glow shimmered across the floor, illuminating ancient symbols etched into the stone. Circles, stars, and geometric shapes flickered in and out of sight, leaving impressions that lingered even after they faded. The air seemed to thicken with presence, as if invisible figures were walking among the shelves and tables, continuing tasks begun centuries ago. The sensation was gentle, almost comforting, like the brushing of robes against the skin. A low hum occasionally rose from the stones, steady and unbroken. It was not musical, yet it resonated through the body, reaching the deepest parts of consciousness. Listening to it felt like being held in a cradle made of history itself. Moonlight occasionally pierced the cracks above, casting fleeting beams that glimmered on the dust in the air. Each movement of light made the chamber feel alive, as if breathing along with the night itself. At times, pages of unseen books seemed to turn on their own, making a delicate, scratching sound. The rhythm of these turns blended with the dripping water, the hum, and the whispers, creating a hypnotic orchestra of timelessness. The door itself sometimes emitted a faint warmth, like a hidden hearth, brushing against the palms of those who dared to touch it. The sensation was fleeting but comforting, as though the chamber acknowledged their presence. Shadows along the floor sometimes formed elaborate patterns, arches, circles, rows of kneeling figures, before dissolving into nothing. Each time, the mind tried to grasp the meaning, but the chamber offered only observation, never explanation. The faint ringing of distant bells returned periodically. The tone was soft, patient, and somehow carried the weight of centuries, coaxing the mind further into serenity and quiet meditation. A subtle vibration sometimes ran through the floor, as though the chamber's heartbeat could be felt in the bones. Each pulse was slow and deliberate, grounding the listener in the present while simultaneously pulling them into timelessness. Airborne motes of dust caught the faint light, drifting lazily like golden sparks. They seemed to dance in harmony with the whispers and the hum, adding a sense of grace and calm to the stillness around. The chamber seemed infinite in scope, though the walls remained visible. Each step forward felt like traversing both space and memory, a journey through centuries captured in stone, air, and silence. Every so often, a fleeting glow appeared beneath the door, soft and golden, like dawn touching a sleeping world. The light spread across the floor in gentle waves before vanishing, leaving behind an echo of warmth that lingered in the bones. Whispers became more intricate still, intertwining in ways that suggested ancient rituals or prayers. Even without understanding, the rhythm of these sounds induced relaxation, a trance-like state where consciousness floated freely. The scent of old ink and waxed candles grew more prominent in certain corners, as though reminding visitors of the countless hands that had labored here over the centuries. The fragrance wrapped around the senses, calm and grounding. The shadows on the walls sometimes seemed to move counter to natural light, forming shapes that were fleetingly recognizable, robed figures, bent heads, hands clutching scrolls or tools. They vanished as quickly as they appeared, leaving only the quiet memory of devotion. Occasionally, the hum and whispers combined to form fleeting harmonic chords, subtle and low, resonating through both stone and flesh. The sound was hypnotic, a gentle lullaby that required no melody or words. The pulse beneath the floor seemed to grow stronger, almost like the chamber itself was breathing. Each vibration carried a sense of patience, of endurance, of centuries of watchful silence. Moonlight shifted slowly across the stones above, sometimes highlighting the faintest carvings, symbols that hinted at stories forgotten, wisdom lost, yet still present in energy and shape. The temperature of the chamber fluctuated subtly, brushing cool air over the skin before a faint warmth returned. The effect was gentle, almost like a conversation without words, inviting the visitor to surrender to the environment. Sometimes, fleeting images appeared in a corner of vision, glimpses of shadowy figures bending over tables, tracing maps, writing letters. The images dissolved instantly, leaving only the quiet hum and the soft drip of water. The whispers became rhythmic, almost like chants, though no words could ever be caught. The mind tried to follow, but eventually surrendered, letting thought float away into the soft presence of the chamber. A faint metallic scent occasionally drifted from the walls, subtle but distinct. It carried the feeling of age and endurance, like the memory of iron and stone holding centuries together. Shadows seemed to form corridors of light and darkness, guiding the eye along paths that led nowhere and everywhere at once. The experience felt infinite, timeless, and oddly comforting. The golden glow beneath the door sometimes seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat matching the subtle vibration beneath the floor. It was steady, reliable, and reassuring, signaling that the chamber was alive in its own quiet way. Dust motes floated lazily in these beams of light, catching briefly before drifting into darkness. Their gentle movement added rhythm to the whispers and the hum, a dance that could lull even the most restless mind. The low hum sometimes swelled slightly, then receded, like the breathing of a massive, unseen presence. The listener felt connected to something vast and ancient, suspended between wakefulness and dream. Whispers sometimes merged with the hum, creating harmonics that seemed almost musical. Even without melody, the combination was mesmerizing, drawing attention away from conscious thought. The chamber's temperature and air currents subtly interacted with the senses, creating a sensation of floating while remaining grounded. It was calming, soothing, and hypnotic, like drifting slowly in a warm, infinite sea. Sometimes, faint lights would shimmer along the edges of the shelves, illuminating forgotten objects for just a moment before retreating again. Each flash suggested stories untold, tasks unfinished, and wisdom quietly preserved. The rhythmic drip of water continued as always, a metronome to the whispers and hum. Each drop was deliberate, precise, and unhurried, reminding the listener that time here was not rushed but eternal. The stone walls seemed almost to pulse with memory, resonating with each visitor's presence. It was subtle, perceptible only to those paying attention, but impossible to ignore once noticed. At times, the faint glow beneath the door would reach its peak, flooding the floor with gentle light. It cast long, soft shadows, suggesting movement and life without revealing form. The air occasionally smelled faintly of wet moss or old stone, adding layers to the atmosphere and deepening the sense of timelessness. Each inhalation became part of the hypnotic experience, calming both body and mind. Shadows and light sometimes intertwined to form fleeting images that resembled past occupants, scribes, guards, monks, scholars. They were glimpses of life once lived, vanishing almost immediately, leaving only feeling behind. The hum and whispers occasionally aligned to create a sensation of waves passing through the room. The waves were slow and steady, carrying a sense of rhythm that synchronized subtly with the listener's own heartbeat. And still, the chamber remained patient, timeless, breathing softly in silence, carrying the weight of centuries. Each corner held a story, each shadow a memory, each drip of water a lullaby, inviting all who entered to surrender and dream. The chamber seemed to breathe as one moved deeper, the air thickening with history itself. Each step brought new sensations, the subtle warmth of unseen walls, the faint vibration beneath the stones, and the whispers that seemed to circle around, never ceasing. Dust floated lazily in slanted beams of moonlight that sneaked through cracks above. Each speck sparkled briefly, catching the eye and then disappearing into shadow, like tiny fragments of forgotten time dancing for a solitary audience. Every now and then, the faint hum deepened, resonating in the chest as if echoing a pulse from the heart of the earth itself. It was gentle but persistent, a reminder that time in this chamber moved differently, measured not by clocks but by centuries. Shadows along the floor stretched unnaturally, curling around corners and forming shapes that seemed almost familiar. A kneeling figure here, a bowed scholar there, vanishing before full recognition could settle in the mind. It was a quiet theater of memory. The subtle scent of old parchment and ink filled the chamber, blending with the damp aroma of stone and moss. Inhaling it was like breathing in stories, absorbing centuries of thought and effort through air alone. A faint metallic tang sometimes drifted on the breeze, hinting at iron tools once used by unknown hands. The presence was calm, not threatening, as if the objects themselves waited patiently for recognition, never asking for it. The hum and whispers seemed to create their own rhythm over time. Pauses in sound were felt as much as heard, filling the mind with space to drift, to dream, to float between wakefulness and sleep. Moonlight shifted slowly across the chamber, tracing shapes along the walls. The interplay of light and shadow formed fleeting constellations, patterns that suggested maps, diagrams, or forgotten rituals, vanishing as quickly as they came. Sometimes, the golden glow beneath the door swelled subtly, spilling warmth across the floor. It was steady, gentle, like sunlight through a heavy fog, inviting comfort without forcing attention. The low drip of water echoed in counterpoint to the hum, each drop a note in a silent symphony. The rhythm was slow, unhurried, measured in patience rather than seconds, reminding all who listened that time itself could be gentle. Air moved softly through cracks, carrying scents that seemed layered. Candle wax, moss, wet stone, and the faintest hint of spice, as though remnants of long-past ceremonies lingered in the air. Shadows sometimes moved contrary to expectation, sliding up walls or curling along floors in ways that made the geometry of the chamber feel fluid. It was disorienting in the gentlest sense, coaxing the mind to release rigid thought. The whispers occasionally merged with the hum, creating harmonic vibrations. These harmonics were not music, but they resonated with the body, soothing and rocking consciousness as if carried on invisible currents. The chamber seemed endless. Each corner led only to another corner, each shadow to another shadow, creating a sense of infinite depth. Yet nothing felt oppressive, it was a soft, enveloping infinity, protective and patient. Sometimes, glimpses of objects appeared in the light, a book lying open, a scroll half-rolled, a quill poised mid-air. They disappeared almost immediately, leaving only memory of their presence, and a subtle sense of participation in centuries of work. Air currents carried faint whispers of past conversations. None could be understood in words, yet emotions, curiosity, caution, dedication, calm, were unmistakable, forming a silent dialogue that transcended language. The vibration beneath the floor sometimes aligned with the pulse of the heart, sinking subtly, almost imperceptibly. Breathing slowed, muscles relaxed, and the mind began to float lightly, untethered from the outside world. Occasionally, shadows on the walls seemed to form processions, lines of figures kneeling, bowing, or moving with deliberate, measured steps. They passed silently, never noticing the living observer, yet leaving a lingering sense of reverence. The golden glow beneath the door sometimes formed patterns, concentric circles and intersecting lines, faint but mesmerizing. Watching them became a meditation, a slow, rhythmic focus that eased thought toward dream. The chamber's subtle scent shifted with the air, carrying hints of wet earth, burnt candle wicks, aged parchment, and faint incense. It was as though each element layered memory, grounding the present in centuries past. A low, almost imperceptible tremor sometimes ran through the stones, like a heartbeat or a distant pulse of energy. It was rhythmic, calming, a constant reminder that the chamber itself was alive in its own slow, patient way. Shadows sometimes curled into shapes that suggested movement, hands writing, tools working, pages turning. These glimpses lasted only seconds, yet were enough to make the imagination fill in entire scenes, silently reconstructing history in fragments. The hum and whispers sometimes combined into an intricate cadence. It was hypnotic, drawing attention away from conscious thought and easing the mind into a state of gentle surrender. Moonlight revealed carvings too faint to notice at first, symbols, glyphs, and lines etched into stone. They shimmered briefly, as if alive, then faded, leaving only the impression of forgotten knowledge. The glow beneath the door sometimes pulsed gently, almost like breathing, signaling an invisible rhythm that synchronized subtly with the room. It conveyed patience, waiting, and continuity across the ages. The drip of water, the hum, the whispers, and the faint glow together created a symphony of stillness. It was a quiet music for the mind, a lullaby that carried the body gently toward rest. Air flowed through the chamber as if guided by unseen hands, brushing softly over skin and clothes, like a whispering presence that invited relaxation and contemplation. Sometimes, faint images appeared in the corner of vision, shadowy figures reading, writing, or kneeling. They dissolved almost instantly, leaving behind only the feeling of their devotion and concentration. The chamber seemed to measure time differently. Seconds stretched into minutes, minutes into hours, yet the mind felt neither hurried nor constrained. It floated in a liminal space, neither awake nor fully asleep, perfectly balanced. Faint tones occasionally rose in the air, harmonic overtones created by the whispers and the hum. They were not music in a traditional sense, but they carried rhythm, flow, and a calming cadence that soothed the listener deeply. Golden dust motes floated lazily in the soft light, catching briefly and spinning gently, adding a subtle visual rhythm to accompany the audio hum and whisper symphony. The temperature subtly shifted in cycles, a gentle warmth here, a soft coolness there. Each change felt deliberate, comforting, and natural, as though the chamber itself was orchestrating the experience. Shadows sometimes twisted into elaborate shapes, forming arches, spirals, and loops that appeared to guide the gaze along deliberate, meditative paths. They were never threatening, only hypnotic. The low hum beneath the stones continued steadily, almost like the heartbeat of the chamber itself. It was a reminder that life, in some form, persisted quietly, patiently, beneath the veil of time. The whispers intertwined with the hum and dripping water to form a subtle orchestra of calm. Each component was distinct yet harmonious, creating a complete sensory lullaby that required no effort to absorb. Light occasionally flickered in soft waves across the floor and walls, revealing intricate details that seemed alive for brief moments, carvings, scratches, and traces of hands long gone. Every corner, every shadow, every whisper held an unspoken story. The chamber preserved these fragments, offering them to those who listened patiently and with stillness. Even after hours, the room remained patient, indifferent to the passage of outside time. It simply continued, breathing, whispering, humming, and waiting. The whispers began to form a gentle rhythm, ebbing and flowing like a tide. Each wave carried with it faint hints of forgotten conversations, the softest echoes of lives long past, urging the mind to drift further into calmness. The golden light beneath the door pulsed softly, spreading warmth along the floor like a river of slow sunlight. It painted fleeting patterns, circles and lines, that dissolved before recognition could settle, leaving only a memory of illumination. A faint vibration ran through the stones beneath the feet, subtle and rhythmic, as if the chamber itself were breathing in slow, measured intervals. Each pulse resonated through the body, coaxing muscles to release tension, one by one. Shadows along the walls twisted and curled, forming delicate spirals and arches that seemed almost alive. Their movement was hypnotic, guiding the gaze along paths that had no beginning and no end, like wandering through a dream. The scent of aged parchment became stronger, mingling with faint traces of candle smoke and moss. Each inhalation carried fragments of thought and memory, as if centuries of contemplation had seeped into the air itself. Drips of water echoed softly in distant corners, perfectly spaced, each drop a note in the chamber's unhurried symphony. The sound combined with whispers and hums to create a hypnotic cadence, guiding the mind into a state of gentle surrender. Moonlight shifted slowly across the chamber, tracing long shadows that danced with the whispers. Each movement revealed faint carvings on the walls, glyphs, symbols, and geometric patterns, that seemed alive for a heartbeat before vanishing. The low hum beneath the floor grew slightly stronger at times, resonating deep in the chest, synchronized subtly with the rhythm of breathing. The effect was meditative, comforting, like a lullaby for the body and soul. Air currents moved softly through the chamber, brushing across skin and clothing, as though invisible hands guided the senses, encouraging relaxation and a feeling of gentle weightlessness. Occasionally, faint images of shadowy figures appeared in the corners of vision. Scholars hunched over scrolls, monks kneeling in silent devotion, artisans tracing careful lines. Each image lasted only seconds before dissolving into shadow. The golden glow beneath the door occasionally expanded, reaching farther across the floor, and then receding slowly, like the pulse of some ancient, unseen heartbeat. Its warmth was comforting, steady, and patient. The whispers seemed to grow intricate, intertwining with one another in patterns almost musical, though no words were ever spoken. The rhythm itself was enough to soothe, to draw the mind into a drifting, liminal space. Shadows sometimes appeared to move contrary to expectation, sliding along walls or curling across floors in ways that defied logic, encouraging the imagination to wander freely, unhindered by rational thought. The scent in the chamber shifted subtly over time, layering notes of damp stone, burnt candle wicks, wet moss, and old ink, each new waft deepening the sense of timelessness and calm. The hum, whispers, and drips of water together created an enveloping soundscape, gentle yet persistent, lulling attention and thought away from the busy mind and into a slow, meditative drift. The subtle glow on the floor occasionally revealed faint scratches, carvings, and indentations in the stone. They hinted at hands long gone, work completed silently, and secrets patiently held for centuries. Every so often, the low vibration beneath the floor synchronized perfectly with the ambient sounds, creating a feeling of unity between body, mind, and chamber. It was grounding, soothing, and almost imperceptibly hypnotic. The chamber seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. Corners led only to more corners, shadows led only to more shadows, and each turn revealed new mysteries waiting to be absorbed by those willing to stay still and listen. Fleeting glimpses of movement, figures bending, hands tracing scrolls, heads bowing, passed like clouds across the field of vision, never revealing more than the faintest hint of life once present. The golden light pulsed softly, and the whispers and hums aligned into a rhythm that suggested careful choreography, a dance of shadows, sound, and faint illumination orchestrated by the chamber itself. The faint scent of metal occasionally drifted, a reminder of tools once held, doors once opened, and work completed long ago. It was subtle, grounding, and completely natural within the space. The air sometimes cooled, then warmed, creating gentle currents that moved lazily across skin and clothing. Each shift added to the sense of being fully immersed, fully enveloped, in the timeless presence of the chamber. Shadows occasionally twisted into recognizable shapes for a moment, kneeling monks, bowing scholars, scribes writing at desks, but vanished almost immediately, leaving only memory and impression behind. The combined effect of the hum, whispers, dripping water, golden light, and drifting air created a complete sensory lullaby. Every sense was gently occupied, yet none were overstimulated, perfectly balanced to induce calm and eventual sleepiness. Moonlight revealed faint, ancient symbols etched into the walls, lines, stars, spirals, each glowing briefly, as if alive with memory, before fading back into darkness. The vibrations beneath the floor continued, steady and soft, like the heartbeat of the chamber itself. They were barely noticeable at first, but gradually filled the body with a gentle rhythm that aligned perfectly with slow, relaxed breathing. Even after hours, the chamber remained patient. Time outside might rush or halt, but inside, the whispers, the hum, and the shadows continued their quiet, hypnotic dance, entirely indifferent to the world beyond. The golden glow beneath the door, the shifting air, and the delicate scent of centuries-old ink and candle wax combined into a perfect symphony for the senses, guiding every visitor into a calm, reflective, almost dreamlike state. Shadows twisted, shifted, and danced in ways that suggested movement, life, and memory without ever fully revealing themselves. The mind, left to wander, filled in the gaps, co-creating a private, hypnotic narrative unique to each observer. Whispers sometimes seemed to converge into patterns, almost forming words, yet never fully forming language. It was enough to feel the intention behind them, to sense devotion, patience, and the slow, careful passage of time. Each drop of water, each flicker of light, each subtle hum created a layer in the chamber's endless lullaby. It was a slow, deliberate symphony designed not to demand attention, but to gently draw it inward, toward calm and rest. The whispers grew softer now, blending seamlessly with the gentle hum of the chamber. They formed a pattern, almost like the rhythm of waves lapping slowly against an unseen shore, calming and constant. The golden light beneath the door pulsed gently, moving across the floor in smooth, measured waves. Each movement cast shifting shadows that invited the mind to wander freely without resistance. Air brushed lightly across the skin, carrying faint hints of moss, wet stone, and old candle wax. Each inhalation seemed to pull centuries of memory into the present, grounding the listener in an ancient, timeless moment. The subtle vibration beneath the floor synced gradually with the rhythm of slow, deep breaths. Muscles relaxed naturally, tension melted, and the body began to feel weightless, cradled by the invisible heartbeat of the chamber. Shadows along the walls sometimes twisted into elegant, flowing shapes, spirals, arches, or fleeting glimpses of robed figures. They moved gracefully, like dancers performing a ritual meant for no eyes but their own. The scent of parchment became more pronounced, mingling with a faint trace of iron. Each inhalation created a sense of presence, a connection to the countless hands that had labored here long ago, leaving traces of their efforts in the very air. The hum and whispers now harmonized subtly, producing tones that were soothing and hypnotic. Each vibration resonated in the chest, lulling the mind toward calmness and gentle introspection. Moonlight shifted slowly across the chamber, highlighting carvings on the walls that had remained invisible for centuries. Stars, circles, and flowing lines shimmered faintly before fading back into shadow, leaving impressions on the mind. The golden glow beneath the door expanded briefly, brushing warmth over every stone and shadow. Its pulse was steady, slow, and comforting, like a lullaby reaching through the centuries. Drips of water echoed faintly from distant corners, their timing deliberate and calming. Each drop seemed to mark time differently, stretching seconds into meditative, endless intervals. Air currents carried whispers of past labor, the faint scratch of quills on parchment, the rustle of robes over stone, and the subtle movement of objects shifted by unseen hands. Shadows sometimes formed fleeting corridors, guiding the eye along paths that seemed infinite. The shapes twisted and turned, never revealing an end, creating a sense of timeless exploration. The hum beneath the floor deepened slightly, vibrating in unison with the whispers. It felt as though the chamber itself was breathing, inviting the body to sync with its patient, eternal rhythm. Golden dust motes drifted lazily in slanted light, catching briefly before fading, adding a visual rhythm to the auditory symphony, dancing like tiny sparks of forgotten memory. Occasionally, faint images of shadowy figures appeared in peripheral vision, scribes bending over scrolls, monks kneeling in meditation, artisans carefully tracing lines. They vanished before the mind could grasp them fully. The subtle scent of wet moss, aged stone, and candle wax mingled in the air. Each breath carried centuries of history, tangible yet gentle, guiding the mind toward rest and reflection. The chamber seemed infinite, each corner leading only to more corners, each shadow suggesting more depth. Time became a fluid concept, neither rushing nor halting, perfectly balanced for meditation and calm. The golden glow beneath the door pulsed in harmony with the hum, whispers, and dripping water. It created a rhythmic environment, drawing the mind into deep focus while simultaneously easing it into sleepiness. Shadows on the walls curled into shapes that hinted at movement, bowed heads, reaching hands, figures walking slowly. They disappeared almost instantly, leaving only impressions on the mind and heart. The whispers wove together into delicate, rhythmic cadences, forming a sensory tapestry that did not need words. Each sound was an invitation to relax, to let go, and to float in the stillness. The low vibration beneath the floor created a gentle resonance in the body, a subtle heartbeat connecting the listener to the chamber. It was grounding, hypnotic, and comforting, pulling the mind further into the calm of the space. Moonlight revealed faint, intricate carvings along the stone walls. Stars, spirals, and geometric symbols flickered briefly as if alive, imprinting their ancient presence upon the observer. The air shifted, sometimes cooling, sometimes warming, carrying scents and currents that brushed across skin, guiding the senses toward a gentle awareness of the timeless space. Drips of water, hums, whispers, and faint golden light all combined into a layered symphony of calm. The mind began to release all unnecessary thought, sinking into the quiet rhythm of the chamber. Shadows twisted and curled into fluid shapes, forming fleeting visions of activity long past. The figures seemed purposeful yet serene, a reminder that the past could coexist with the present in quiet harmony. The chamber's pulse grew subtly stronger, almost like a heartbeat shared between the room and the body. Each vibration carried the sense of patience, endurance, and timeless presence. The golden glow beneath the door occasionally expanded fully across the floor, illuminating every shadow and crevice before retreating, leaving behind the soft impression of warmth and comfort. The whispers sometimes merged with the hum to form harmonic patterns, delicate and soothing. The effect was hypnotic, each sound carrying the mind gently into meditation and eventual sleep. Shadows formed arches and spirals, creating intricate visual pathways that guided the gaze without demanding focus. Each movement was gentle, hypnotic, and perfectly synchronized with the auditory environment. The chamber seemed fully alive, breathing, whispering, humming, and watching silently. Every element worked in harmony to lull the body, mind, and spirit into complete relaxation. The faint smell of parchment, wax, and moss layered over the vibrations, light, and whispers, enveloping the senses completely. It was immersive, grounding, and infinitely calming. Even after hours, the chamber remained patient, indifferent to the passage of time outside. Inside, whispers, hums, golden light, and shadows continued their delicate, hypnotic dance, waiting for each visitor to fully surrender to rest. The chamber's whispers softened further, blending seamlessly with the hum and the occasional drip of water. Every sound carried a calm rhythm, a steady heartbeat that guided the mind deeper into relaxation. Golden light beneath the door spread in gentle waves, moving across the floor and walls like slow, liquid sunlight. Shadows danced briefly in its glow, forming shapes that teased the imagination before dissolving again. Air brushed softly across skin, carrying faint scents of old parchment, candle wax, moss, and wet stone. Each breath seemed to draw centuries into the lungs, a subtle infusion of history and quiet memory. The floor pulsed with a gentle vibration, perfectly aligned with the slow, deep breathing of those present. Muscles melted into the rhythm, tension leaving the body as if carried away by the chamber itself. Shadows curled into flowing, hypnotic forms along the walls, arches, spirals, and fleeting silhouettes of figures moving with deliberate grace. They guided the gaze without force, drawing attention gently and then releasing it. The hum and whispers merged into soft harmonics, subtle but steady, resonating through chest and bones. Every tone was soothing, a lullaby woven from the chamber itself, inviting surrender and calm. Moonlight shifted slowly, highlighting faint carvings, geometric symbols, stars, and spirals that shimmered briefly before fading. They spoke in a silent language of history and memory, felt more than seen. The golden glow pulsed in time with the vibrations beneath the floor, creating a rhythm that seemed alive, patient, and entirely natural. It wrapped the space in warmth, comfort, and quiet serenity. Water dripped with perfect, gentle timing from distant unseen corners. Each drop blended seamlessly with the hum and whispers, forming a delicate, unhurried symphony that could cradle even the busiest mind into rest. Faint images flickered at the edge of vision, scholars bent over manuscripts, monks kneeling in meditation, artisans tracing careful lines. They appeared briefly, silent, and vanished, leaving only impression and calm. The chamber seemed infinite, its corners and shadows stretching endlessly, yet never oppressive. Every step forward was a journey through timelessness, each moment balanced between presence and dream. Golden dust motes floated lazily in the light, catching briefly and spinning gently, adding a visual rhythm that perfectly complemented the auditory lullaby of whispers, hums, and dripping water. Air shifted subtly, warming here, cooling there, brushing softly across skin. The movement was gentle, almost imperceptible, yet it guided the senses deeper into relaxation and surrender. Shadows moved with quiet grace, forming arches, spirals, and delicate paths that encouraged the mind to wander. The movements were hypnotic, drawing attention inward rather than outward. The faint pulse beneath the floor continued steadily, like the heartbeat of the chamber itself. It resonated through the body, anchoring it to the present while allowing the mind to drift gently towards sleep. Moonlight revealed symbols etched in stone, stars, spirals, lines, and geometric shapes. They shimmered briefly, alive with memory, before fading back into shadow, leaving impressions on the mind. Whispers formed rhythmic, delicate patterns, never fully words but conveying a sense of devotion, patience, and the slow passage of time. Listening felt like floating in a gentle river of sound. The golden glow beneath the door expanded periodically, flowing across the floor in waves. Its warmth and light were gentle, comforting, and hypnotic, perfectly synchronized with the chamber's other subtle rhythms. Shadows sometimes suggested movement, hands writing, heads bowing, figures kneeling or tracing lines. They appeared fleetingly, leaving a sense of presence without requiring focus or understanding. The hum, whispers, water drops, and golden light combined into a layered sensory lullaby. The effect was total immersion, auditory, visual, and tactile, inviting the body and mind into gentle surrender. The chamber seemed alive yet patient, breathing, whispering, glowing, and waiting quietly for each visitor to relax fully and embrace the stillness of the space. Air currents carried faint scents, wet moss, candle wax, old ink, stone, and faint metallic hints. Each inhalation was grounding, calming, and perfectly suited to deep rest. The low vibration pulsed in harmony with whispers and hums, moving through the body like a slow, deliberate heartbeat. It was grounding, hypnotic, and deeply comforting. Fleeting shapes formed in shadows, figures bending, hands writing, heads bowing. They were gone almost as quickly as they appeared, leaving only calm impressions behind. Moonlight shifted across walls, revealing faint carvings for a heartbeat before fading. Stars, spirals, and geometric forms shimmered softly, communicating history in a silent, hypnotic language. The chamber's pulse, golden glow, and layered whispers worked together, creating a rhythm that slowly carried attention inward, away from conscious thought, and toward gentle relaxation. Air currents brushed the skin intermittently, cooling and warming, carrying subtle scents and drawing the senses deeper into the calm and quiet of the space. Water dripped rhythmically, blending seamlessly with whispers, hums, and golden light. The sound became a slow, measured metronome that the mind could follow effortlessly, like breathing in time with the chamber itself. Shadows twisted into gentle spirals and arches, moving elegantly across walls and floors. Each movement guided the mind subtly, encouraging a drifting awareness without effort. The combined effect of light, shadow, whispers, hums, water, air, and scent created a perfectly balanced sensory environment. Body, mind, and spirit were gradually lulled into total calm. the chamber remained patient, timeless, and alive. It continued its slow symphony of whispers, hums, golden light, and shadows, entirely indifferent to outside time, waiting quietly to cradle every visitor into deep rest. So guys, how did you feel about tonight's story? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of our upcoming bedtime histories. Stay well, stay safe, and good night.